Welcome back, lovely audience. In this episode, I interview Alex Romanov of the Beam project. Beam is a privacy-oriented, GPU mineable proof-of-work project. And as a cryptocurrency, it is fascinating. They've done tremendous work rolling in some of the work of other complementary teams, privacy-oriented projects like Zcoin, as well as building on the Mimblewimble protocol of projects before it, like Grin. Such a treat to be able to talk to Alex about the Beam project, his involvement, what he did before getting into cryptocurrency, the kinds of cryptocurrencies that he was interested in and that got him involved in the Beam project, and the rest of the team's choices with relationship to the Beam Privacy Coin project. Such an incredible project. I cannot speak highly enough of it, and while I'm kind of sad that we haven't been able to debut as many of these as I've wanted to in recent history, I'm extremely excited to be able to bring to you this unedited, full-length interview with Alex Romanov. Enjoy. First off, I'm noticing in the backdrop, I see a VW bus, I see a Beetle, and are
That's
those...
right.
What else is that? Is that an Earth mover? What do you got in the backdrop there? You're a collector.
Yeah, I am. It's a Lego Technic. It's a flagship model of this year. It's a Liebherr excavator. It has these new electrics and very cool model. Yeah, I like building Legos in my spare time. It's just like a kind of a hobby.
Awesome. Yeah, all that spare time, right?
All of it.
Yeah. Yeah, 5 minutes every 2 weeks. That's awesome. No, that's great to see that you've got that kind of passion for something on the side as well. I think when you see somebody that doesn't have a hobby, for me at least, the first thought in my mind is, okay, that is a sociopath over there. No hobbies. They're all business all the time. So that's cool, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's just for the record, let's kind of do a slate, and then we'll start with the interview. I'll let the audience know that we're starting the episode, and then I will introduce you. And if you can tell us really briefly about yourself in maybe 30 seconds, then from there, we'll jump off into the questions. Are you
Sure.
ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mind Your Biz podcast. My name is Seth Estrada, and I have the pleasure of bringing onto the show with me today one Alex Romanov of the Beam project, a privacy-oriented proof-of-work coin that has really come up in popularity, especially among miners. And that's how it hit my radar early on in its life cycle, was that among GPU miners in particular, there was a lot of buzz, a lot of hype surrounding Beam. So, Alex, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Seth. Thank you for having me. It's great.
No, pleasure.
Here, yeah.
Alex, if you can do the audience a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe summarize Alex Romanov in 30 seconds. I know, no easy feat, but if you can, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'll try. So my name is Alex Romanov, and I've been developing software for the last 16 years or so. Many different technologies, a lot of different projects, mostly startups. I started as a C++ programmer for about 7 years. Then I moved into the web space, and then I moved into management and started dealing with more like managerial tasks. Some last projects I was a VP R&D and CTO, things like that. Before I started working with Beam, I did not have any experience with the cryptocurrency space. In fact, the first coin I have ever owned was Beam that we created. Yeah, I didn't even have a Bitcoin before that. Yeah, so it was new for me, but so far it's been an exciting adventure, and I'm very glad I jumped into this.
That is awesome. So Alex, this brings up a ton of jump off points for me, and it's going to be difficult for me to stay on track, because now knowing that you didn't approach Beam from the perspective of a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or a Zcash or say a Monero fanatic, that tells me quite a bit about your mindset moving in. If you started with sort of a beginner's mind and you had that sort of flexibility mentally of just evaluating every space a bit dispassionately, that tells me quite a bit about why you made some of the design choices that you did in working on Beam. So that's great. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that in a minute, but that's awesome. So C++ is your strongest competency then within programming. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience in C++. Lately, I was doing projects also in Python and all kinds of machine learning and things like that. So when we started working on Beam is implemented in C++. So I didn't code most of the things, so I have assembled a team. I will tell you about it in a minute, of great guys that have a lot of C++ experience among them. So
Sure. Awesome. I can't wait. Can't wait. So let's talk a little about Beam then, and just some of the vitals of the project. And let's take the pulse of the Beam project really fast here together. First off, with Beam, is it an infinitely emitted coin, or is there a cap to the number of coins that will be emitted? If so, what's the snapshot today of the available coins versus the total proposed supply?
yeah, so Beam is a capped emission coin. It is suited for store of value. That was the initial idea of the project. And the cap is 265 million, I believe, something like that. And currently, I think it's something over 50 million. I don't remember the exact number, but we have a blockchain explorer, which is linked from our website that you can take a look at. And it shows the exact amount of currently minted coins and how much of them are mined and how much of them come from treasury, which is also something we will probably talk about, how this project is financed. So yeah, that's the point.
Okay, awesome. Then we'll have those links in the show notes then, and we'll link directly to the Block Explorer. I mean, again, this is not a real-time published content stream, so if people don't like the number you give in the interview, of course, wait whatever. How long is the block time? Just wait that long, right? So
okay,
yeah. Awesome. So as far as the transactions per second, this may not be one of the core features of Beam today, but there are a lot of projects that tout their transactions per second and their throughput as a major feature. So for Beam, what is that number today? How many transactions per second can it handle?
Yeah, so Beam block is created on average every minute, and it's about 1 megabyte in size, which means that it's about 17 to 20 transactions per second. It's better than Bitcoin, but of course, it's not the number that allows you to be, medium of exchange. However, we do have some additional features, such as, for example, direct payment channels that are similar to Lightning Network, which do allow instant confirmation transactions between two wallets directly. It's still not a complete Lightning Network because it still misses this routing component, but there is a possibility to do instant payments and, streaming payments and things like that in Beam as well.
Sure. And it's something that I apologize. I failed to mention when we were first introducing the project and you, is that Beam, of course, implements Mimblewimble. Are the Mimblewimble protocol, is it intact in these direct payments?
Yeah, so Mimblewimble, it's a very interesting protocol in several aspects. So first of all, as you know, probably it was published in 2016 by an anonymous author. And it's ingenious in a way that it's very simple. The white paper is like 4 or 5 pages long. And despite this simplicity, it allows to solve out of the box 2 major issues with Bitcoin today, which are confidentiality and scalability in terms of the blockchain size. So the way it works is that instead of having transactions specified as a script as you have in Bitcoin, the UTXO structure is replaced with a cryptographic thing that's called Pedersen commitment. And what it allows you to do is basically 2 things. First of all, it encrypts the value of the transaction. And also it allows something that's called cut-through. So you can discard all the spent UTXOs and only store the current state of the blockchain. So your blockchain grows as a function of number of UTXOs and not the number of the transactions, which makes it significantly smaller. So this is the basic of Mimblewimble as it was described in the white paper, and that's the way we have implemented it. However, we have discovered that in addition to that, Mimblewimble can be extended very elegantly and easily into many different directions. And I will mention several features that we have built on top of it. One of those features is the ability to have direct payment channels in which 2 wallets lock funds, just like in the Lightning Network, and then within this frame, they can exchange funds instantaneously without having to wait for blocks for confirmations. And then at the end of this session, they settle on chain. So yeah, that's one of the things that we have done with Mimblewimble, but it's just one example out of many. And I hope I will get to describe them all.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So to describe a little bit about the audience, you're speaking to an audience that is semi-technical, certainly people who are into mining. And so while many of the audience may not be programmers or developers and may not understand, if you were to speak at a low level about the implementation and writing, implementing all of this and executing all of this in C++, I think they're going to be able to follow the features, certainly the way you described them at a high level there, and see the value in them. So that's awesome. I'd love to hear more about the additional features that the Beam team has implemented. Now, branching off of or jumping off from the initial white paper, what Mimblewimble creates a vision for possibilities to create from. So that's awesome. And as far as I understand it, what you're saying is that this lightning style approach to
we call it a laser beam.
That's great. So you've maintained the branding there. That's awesome. So
Absolutely.
Extend the brand. That is awesome. And as far as the scalability of transactions using laser beam and then settling later on, are you finding then that, I mean, I doubt that you've had real world usage scale to the level that you've seen a stress test, but have you seen a massive slowdown?
No, we have just finished implementing it recently, and it's not in the mainnet yet. It will be in the next version. So so far the main usage of Beam is just regular Mimblewimble transactions. There is no load on the network as of right now. So it's even though Beam is currently used in quite a lot of stores and services online, over 100 actually, they're listed on our website. Still, there is enough space for most transactions, so there is no problem with latency. It's not like there is a queue, and generally your transaction is expected to be completed within a minute.
Phenomenal. And so without having done real world stress tests, have you been able to do meaningful projections to figure out what the throughput could be if you were onboarding, say, more online retailers, e-commerce providers, for example?
Yeah, so the 1720 limit is the standard Beam transaction per second ratio, but with the Lightning, I'm not sure how it will be much faster, of course, but I don't really have a precise number about that.
Got it. I'd love to see some projections. I mean, maybe that can be featured on the Mimblewimble main, or the Beam main page. I get confused because you guys use the .mw top level domain. So for me, I keep thinking Mimblewimble when I look at the website, which again, it's brilliant branding, but it gets me a little confused. So, but with the Beam main page, I'd love to see a projection of maybe the current thinking of where that throughput level could be based on some meaningful projections that the team has gone through, just to figure out how can this scale.
Sure.
That'd be awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the initial problem or pain that the team sought to solve. Something about my channel and something about this podcast that I think is very important for people who are evaluating new projects is that I think more of us should be looking at this as though they're tech startups, or as though we're just looking at any other free and open source software project. And we should be taking a look at why teams got started in the first place. Whose pain are they trying to solve? Whose pain are they trying to take away? And was it personal enough for the founding team that they'll stick with the problem domain after the initial hype has worn off a little bit, and maybe the market dumps the value of their coin a little bit? Will their passion for solving that problem be maintained? So So what was that pain point for you guys? Or whose pain point was it? If it was a personal anecdote, that'd be even better. A little story to tell.
So the main idea of Beam, the main goal and the main passion of the team behind Beam is basically practicality. And what I mean by practicality is being able to really use cryptocurrency in your day-to-day life and all the settings that you encounter, whether it's private or business. So one of the problems with Bitcoin that we saw, and of course several other projects saw it as well, is the issue of confidentiality, right? You don't really want, if you are a private person or a business, you don't really want just anyone to be able to see all your transactions and all your balances, or being able to track you using companies like Chainalysis. It's not necessarily your wish to have all this information out there completely exposed to anyone. You do want to have control. You want to decide who you want to show this information to and who you don't want to show this information to. It should be up to you. So that was the first point of Beam in terms of having confidentiality as the most basic, basic human right, basic feature of any practical cryptocurrency that really can be used in the real world. So that's why we chose Mimblewimble, because it provides this confidentiality without having to trade off your scalability. It does not bloat your blockchain. It's not heavy in terms of computation. It's built in and it's by default, so you don't have to, turn it on using some flag or just have some amount of private transactions, and thus, reducing your anonymity set or stuff like that. So that's the choice of Mimblewimble as being the most practical, the most elegant solution for these issues. But that's just the beginning, because in order to be really practical, you also have to have a great usability. One of the problems with all this cryptocurrency space, it's extremely difficult to handle. For a non-technical person, it's unbelievably difficult, but even for technical people, it's not obvious sometimes, and which is why we have invested a lot of effort in building our wallets. Today, we have wallets for all platforms, desktop wallets for Mac, Windows, and Linux, and 2 mobile wallets for iOS and Linux and Android devices. And they're all built with a very unsophisticated user in mind. They're all very usable, very beautiful. I think it's like one of the most beautiful wallets in the industry today. We have invested a lot of effort into that. There are some issues still because people got used to Bitcoin, and Mimblewimble is different because it's an interactive protocol, so it requires 2 wallets to create a transaction. And there are no addresses on the blockchain at all. So it's a little bit different, and people are used to sending coins to some address, and here there are no addresses. So we had to emulate some of that terminology, and we have created a system that's called SBBS, which is a secure bulletin board system, which allows 2 wallets to communicate using encrypted messages. And this makes the process of creating a transaction quite simple. Both wallets don't have to be online at the same time. There is a message sent, and you can come online sometime during the day and receive this message and respond to it. And that's how the transaction is created. So the second point after confidentiality is, of course, usability. So that's the other one. And the third point, I think, is ability to build practical applications on top of that. And I will talk a little bit more about it when I talk about our plans for 2020 that we have announced recently, and we have published some videos and some articles about it. Because in 2019, our goal was to establish, this stable infrastructure, the blockchain, which is running, listed on many exchanges, accepted in many stores, robust and very well developed. So that's what we did in last year, and we succeeded, I think, very well. It's one of the more active projects in terms of development. We had like 65 releases last year, which is more than 1 release per week for all platforms. And it's very impressive. But in 2020, the goal is to take it further and really build a platform for applications, confidential DeFi applications that will bring this third point home. So it will be confidential, it will be practical, usable, and extendable in many ways.
That's awesome. Okay, on the third point, that's what a guy like me loves to hear, because I'd love to be able to bring on any third-party development team in the future and ask them, hey, what are you building on? I'd love to hear them say, hey, we're building on a Mimblewimble project. You may have heard of it, Beam. That'd be awesome, because I don't think I'm hearing enough about that from other sides of the industry. Right? You hear sometimes like, oh yeah, we're using the Ethereum virtual machine kind of, but we're not really happy with it, or we've been evaluating EOS, or Tron is gaining a bit of traction over here, so we feel like we need to use them, we need to consider them. But what is it Satya Nadella said about Windows? Not that Beam is at all like Windows, but I think Satya Nadella said that we want people to go from being forced to use our platform to from feeling like they need to use our platform to actually loving the use of our platform. Hopefully you have that kind of advocacy this time next year. But let's
hope so.
Talk a little bit about the unique tech advantage. I think you mentioned before that right now you've made confidentiality accessible, is what I'm hearing at the bottom line. Is there any other unique tech advantage that the average user will see from using Beam today?
Yeah, so once again, it's fast, it's usable, and I think one of the features that we have developed, but it still has some room for adoption and expansion, is the atomic swaps. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, just not on Beam, but yes, of course, atomic swaps are. I mean, they're the greatest idea to come out of 2016 that everyone is still attempting to implement correctly.
Yeah, so we did implement it, and not only we did implement it, it's built into our wallet, into the GUI, so it's also easy to use, and you can exchange today Beam for Bitcoin, Litecoin, or Quantum without any trusted third party, completely anonymously, and it's at least on Beam side, it's completely confidential. So that's like one of the useful features that we're currently developing. The API for that feature it will be released with the next release, I think next month. And the idea is that you can actually build tools that provide liquidity. You can, create your own swaps using the API and create bots that swap coins using the API. It will not replace the exchange, but it gives you an alternative, which is nice. And it's like this pinnacle of decentralization. It's the Cadillac of decentralized finance. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and especially it sounds like with one of the project goals, it sounds like making this as accessible as possible via an API that is solid.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. If that can be accessible to the semi-technical user, then great. Hopefully we see some services built on top of that.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult feature to implement. Technically, it requires locking coins on both chains and swapping secrets. It's quite a complication.
Okay, well then good luck getting that delivered as fast as possible. I think everyone is. Yeah. A lot of people in the crypto industry, whether they know it or not, they're waiting for true dexes and they're waiting for atomic swaps to deliver on those promises. So it's funny. That's the whole thrust of this series is privacy and so confidentiality, as you mentioned before, bare minimum confidentiality, but a modicum of data privacy. And I mean, where do we need data privacy more than in our finance?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So let me ask you, as far as the team right now, Alex, you're in a unique position being in this interview to highlight some members of the team who maybe merit a very public shout out. And I understand there may be a lot of contributors. This is like asking you to choose your favorite child or your favorite niece or nephew or something. It's a fool's errand, but I have to ask anyway. Is there somebody who you think merits a big shout out right now from the team?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is very difficult because all of these guys are my friends from way back. So most of the people on this project I have previously worked with, and some of them are actually my personal friends that we meet, off work to have beers and stuff. And it's not simple, but I think that. Whoever, if you go to the team page, this is the foundation members, but right. So here are the core team guys. So Alexander Zaderson was the CEO of the company when we had the company, and today he's a business lead of the project. I think a lot of people know him because he appears in a lot of videos and conferences, and was I think he's popular. So Sasha Abramovich is our product manager, and the guy responsible for all this beauty and all the concepts behind the wallet and the way they work. He's the one who designed it all together with Alexandra, our lead designer. Vika, she is the QA lead, and she's responsible for the very high quality of the project. It's very difficult to test so many releases on so many platforms every week almost. Outside there is a Beam node and Beam wallet, but there is also the Blockchain Explorer, and there is also a lot of additional, modules and technologies that we use. And she's managing the team of very talented and hardworking QA guys that really work hard. We have also QA automation to speed up some of these processes.
I can only imagine. You mentioned, you averaged more than a release per week last year. So
yeah. She's doing an amazing job. Not only a QA, she's also, doing some project management and organizing this stuff and, kicking the programmers when they're behind on stuff. So yeah, she does all that. Vladi Gelfer, Vladislav Gelfer. He is the lead developer of the Beam node, and he is the guy behind many innovations and technologies that come on top of Mimblewimble. He also was completely new to the space, but he has a physics background, so he's like has scientific oriented mind. So he's very talented C++ developer for many years, over 20 years, I think, of experience. So really, he really got the hang of all this cryptography, and today he's doing amazing things. I hope to be able to mention some of them, like Lilantus Mimblewimble, which is the protocol extensions we're working on, and such.
Oh yeah, and I'm looking forward to that as well. I spoke with Ruben Yap just a few weeks ago, and so I think those of folks who are following this series are eagerly checking to see what the Zcoin team will produce from their work on Lilantus, and then these collaborations as well.
Yeah, so Anatoly Sebastian, he is the lead developer of the Beam wallet, and the guys on the line below are his team that are developing all these great features that we have in the wallet. Roman and Alexander Starun, they developed the atomic swaps for like many months. It was a very hard project. Vadim Grigoruk is actually a very experienced open source developer. He has a side project called Nestbox, which is very popular. It's a gaming console-like project. So he has a lot of experience with open source even before Beam.
Okay, so it's a bit like RetroPie is kind of similar to his project then? Is it something like an ARM implementation of NES?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not sure exactly on the platform that he uses, but I know that this project is familiar to many, and it has a lot of following. Yeah, so if you scroll down a little, so you can see like in the middle, there is Denis Demyanko. He's the mobile developer, and he basically has implemented both the Android and the iOS wallets almost from scratch. We had one developer before that who left, but today he's responsible for all of these cool features that we roll out like every couple of weeks. So Daria is a designer who is working both on the website and on the wallet projects, and all the rest. Alexander Braginsky is the web developer who has developed the Blockchain Explorer, and currently we're working on the web wallet. It's going to be very cool because it will allow us much more flexibility in terms of integrations, because Mimblewimble wallets are very difficult to integrate, which is why we still do not appear in any of the popular crypto wallets. But we hope to overcome that using this web service technology that we're currently developing.
Okay, phenomenal. Yeah, that did be a question for a little later on. That's awesome. And I mean, I apologize. For the video, I haven't been mousing over their image cards. Apparently, they flip around. For the podcast audience, the team page is extremely informative. You have, where applicable, you have direct links to the LinkedIn profiles of team members, which is awesome to be able to see that they're real people in the real world.
That's right.
So that's great. It sounds like, your team has been, certainly based on the release schedule of last year, your team has obviously been busy. And then, thanks for breaking down a bit of the contribution of some of those core team members there. And I imagine there's some contributors from the community as well, or maybe some contributors just who have decided to do bug fix or something else.
There are several contributors, mostly to the areas around the core technology, because it's quite difficult to jump into the really heavy lifting stuff. But we do hope to this year, like one of the goals is to being able to extend the contributions from the community. We're working on better documentation for the code and better tutorials and guides to jump into that. It's a lot of work to do, and since the development is still very, very active, so it's kind of moving aside. But that is one of our goals, and we will try to do that as well. Yeah.
Okay, phenomenal. Can I ask also, as far as the geography of the team, I noticed there were a lot of names of your core team are clearly not, say, French, for example, or clearly not from Spain. So where in the world is your team based?
Most of the guys with Russian-sounding names are actually from Belarus. Have you heard about Belarus? Yeah, it's a great country.
Yeah.
Some of the team lives in Israel. And some of the team are actually traveling all around, like Sasha Abramovich, for example. Most of the time he was in Thailand, on the beach.
He's got that look with the hair. He looks like he gets out.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are very global in this way. Belarus, Israel, Ukraine also, and Thailand.
Okay, so all noted tech hubs then, basically.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, so I think anybody from the audience who isn't familiar with of course, Intel out in Israel and all of the research that takes place in Israel, though I think for some members of the community as well, that it raises the alarm. Hey, has NSO ever reached out to you guys and said, can you help us insert a backdoor into your network, into your protocol?
No, they didn't. And also all the code, that's where the open source comes in. And, it would not really be simple to do, because you can just build Beam node from script, from the source, and you're actually welcome, and it's very recommended to do that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for playing. I feel I like to give a little bit of pushback to all teams that talk about the only the benefits of their project. I'm not going to name any other project's name during your interview, but I will say it on Twitter. There was a project that said there is no single entity that controls our project, and I was like, I wonder who approves the pull requests.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, though. Thanks for playing there. Thanks for giving those shout outs to the team, letting us know, giving a face, right, and a name to people who are making this technology real. As far as collabs, I think one of the most healthy signs of a healthy open source project is where they've given back, whether it be in responsible disclosure of bugs, assisting with bug fix on joint technologies, or just saying, hey, your technology is useful, we'd like to implement it, and so of course we will graciously assist in the development of it. You mentioned Lelantis, so it's clear that you're at least in talks with the Zcoin team. Are there any other successes or wins from the Beam team in collaboration in the open source community?
Yeah, so we do have quite a lot of discussions with Green project, because obviously the same protocol, a lot of similarities, and a lot of issues that we tackle together. So we do have some conversation with them, which are very fruitful. And David Burkett from the Green ++ team, and obviously with Zcoin guys. So yeah, we do talk with basically anyone we can about all these issues, because there's just so many things that we can miss or not think about. I think it's basically a necessity to have some kind of discussions going on, and of course, offer help whenever and wherever it's possible. Sure.
Okay, awesome. Where are there some specifics that you'd feel comfortable talking about openly in terms of technical hurdles that your team has solved through that style of collaboration?
Yeah, so I think most of it will be too technical for this podcast, but
okay.
It starts from the very basic architectural decisions, or of how you store the UTXOs, because there are a lot of nuances in the operation of the node that can go either way. And I think we learned a lot from these other projects, and I also hope that some of the decisions that we have chosen differently from them, they also took back from us. So I think there is this like mutual help in this area. Like, for example, for creating transactions, we have created this SBBS system, which works easier than what Green currently have, and I think they're implementing something similar, or at least taking some of these ideas. So yeah, I think this dialogue is fruitful for all sides.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like then the most visible example of where that may be bearing fruit is in the SBBS system that you mentioned before.
Yeah, just one of the examples, but there are many, and they're very like low level and nuanced.
Got it. Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate you playing and giving us some kind of an example of where that collaboration may be visible. I think that helps for this audience. It helps to just know, hey, these are good actors, right? These are good faith actors, and they are reaching out to other projects, and they're not just saying like, hey, we saw a problem in your code and we fixed it for our implementation, but F you guys, like we're just gonna focus on our own stuff and we're not giving back at all. I think, you don't have to look far in the cryptocurrency community to see a lot of toxicity. So
yeah, no, we like being good citizens, I think.
Awesome. Well, on that note, is there any other kind of any other examples of giving back within the community that the Beam team can point to so far?
Forks excluded. Yeah. No, that doesn't come to mind right now, but
Sure. Well, and this is another one of those difficult questions to answer on the spot, and I understand that. But if something comes up, feel free to interrupt me further on in the interview and just let me know. Oh yeah, a collab or an example of giving back. I just think that's important to have a culture of that from the beginning, in my opinion, because that kind of culture, it propagates into the future within the culture of a company. So
yeah, definitely.
Those kinds of examples. So as far as funding, let's go to the basis of operations. You have a lot of core developers. You have a lot of core contributors. How was the Beam project funded in the beginning? How is it funded now? And how will it be funded in the future?
Okay, so one of the things that we really wanted to do from the very beginning is to move fast. So move fast meant we needed money, we needed full-time guys to work on that from the very beginning, which is why we have decided to implement this treasury model in which 20% of each mine block for the first 5 years of the project goes into the treasury. And this treasury is allocated to project investors that we had. They put the money in at the beginning of the project, the core team, and also the Beam Foundation that I will explain in a second. So this allowed us to raise something about $5 million. And that allows us to get this team together very quickly and start running. So, of course, when we launched on January 3rd, 2019, so every month there is this portion of the treasury that is being released, and it's indicated in the Blockchain Explorer. And from that portion, all these investors get their tokens back. And now from that point onwards, they can control them. But it's basically aligned to 60 months, which is 5 years. So it's not like ICO where you get all your tokens at once and put, you can do whatever you want with them. It's basically like an installment plan, which is...
or like a vesting schedule. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reason that I think it's a good idea is because it creates this alignment of interest of all the involved parties, investors, core team, and of course the foundation alike, to maintain this project for like many years. So that's like how we started. And this structure allowed us, it was a company basically with like the central control and, CTO, CEO, CFO, all these executive roles, which allowed us to control and to organize very well, not spend, time, not waste time on things that we shouldn't have. And everybody had his area of responsibility, and that's what allowed us to move very fast. We basically implemented the entire thing from scratch in a little bit over 9 months, under 10 months, from March to December, with 4 testnets and everything. So it was very quickly. However, it was obvious to us as well that in the longer run, we don't want to have a company. We do want to have a more decentralized structure. And this is why at the beginning of this year, we have moved to Beam Foundation, which basically replaced the company. So there are no longer CEO and all these executive roles. We have me as a tech lead, and we have a business lead and marketing and things like that. But all the decision-making is now controlled by the board of directors of the Beam Foundation, which is also appears on the website. It's basically people who are really into Beam as a concept, as the idea. They really want this project to succeed. Not necessarily for financial purposes, but more as a vision, and they helped us a lot along the way. So today we're governed by this board, which takes all the strategic decisions, and then we implement the roadmap that we have just recently announced based on the current team structure. So the core team remained the same, same developers, but the overall structure became, I think, better, more decentralized, and better in the long run. And since the beginning of this year, the financing of the project goes directly from the treasury. So it depends on the price of Beam, obviously, and we make adjustments as we go.
Got it. I was going to mention that initial fundraise. I mean, in terms of development, the size of your core development roster is so large that it doesn't get you extremely far with that initial fundraise. I mean, certainly not too far into the future without having some sort of a development fund, right, or development fee coming from the block reward.
Yeah, so that's exactly the point of the treasury, to being able to sustain this project going forward for as much as possible. And we do have quite a lot of plans for this year. We're fine in terms of financing for 2020, and this allowed us to move forward at least at the same pace as the last year, I think.
That's awesome. Okay, so it sounds like then moving forward then with this change, at least into a more flat management structure, if not fully decentralized yet, it sounds like for 2020, I'll interpret it to with those words. Those are my words, not yours. But at least with a more flat management structure, because it appears that you've got some leads and you have contributors, but it doesn't look like you any longer have like CXO roles, right? So it just, to me, it looks like a flat management structure. It looks less like decentralization because it's still the same core contributors, but it's a step towards that as an aspirational.
That's right.
Aspirational ideal, right? So that's great. That's really great because you guys you're practicing what you preach. You're practicing the slow release of power, right? Which is, and I think it's the best you can do. Anybody who believes like, oh yeah, we're fully decentralized and we're all community run. I'm sorry, I agree. These projects die.
I agree. One of the goals was to really maintain the speed and maintain the quality of the development. And so it's a delicate balance between these two.
Yeah. So that's awesome to see you guys actually doing that. As far as the next iteration of that step towards decentralization and that step towards there being, I don't know, less of a flat structure and more of a mesh of contribution that is less decentralized or less centralized around the initial core contributors. Is there anything on the roadmap or anything that the core contributor team has been able to publish about what that will look like how that will take place?
Well, there is nothing specific, I think, that you will find as an article, but there are several aspects that can influence that. One is the aspect of adoption, because I believe that the more the project is adopted and the more people are actually drawn to it, to develop on top of it or around it or inside it. So this is one of the reasons I believe Beam becoming a platform will actually move us forward in this direction as well. And also, it's basically the stabilization. So if the project is stable enough, because right now we are in this frenzy of development and changes, it's very difficult to contribute to a project which is in such rapid pace of change. And I think that towards the end of this year we will try to stabilize that and make this more let's say relaxed, more stable in terms of amount of changes, and then we will be able to easier add developers or allow easier involvement in the project for community members that do not come from the core team.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like based on what you've laid out so far with Beam development, it sounds like the SPVS system or having there be some of these APIs in place for a pseudo wallet structure that people are a little more familiar with, and then having a little bit more of what you've already been developing be a stable layer to build upon, that you anticipate at that point when you attract third-party developers to build on that as a platform, or that you should have more of a sort of constellation of development talent to pull from.
Yeah, SBBS is just like one minor example, but sure. I don't know if now it's the time, but to talk about this, the concept of confidential assets that we're currently building.
Sure, if you'd like to offer that, then now's the time. Yeah.
Cool. So when I say that Beam is becoming a platform, it's much more than just being able to interface with it using different tools or software. The basic idea is to become a fully featured DeFi platform for confidential applications. And what this means for us is that you will be able, starting from our next scheduled fork, which is in a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, you will be able to create new tokens on top of Beam, just like you can in Ethereum. But unlike Ethereum, you do not need smart contracts to do that. You can just create new tokens as first-class citizens of the Beam ecosystem, and they're confidential by default. So you can create new coins which behave exactly like Beam, which means they're confidential, they're scalable, and everything else. And this is one of the several building blocks that we're currently working on. And one of the things, for example, you can do with this feature, except just creating new tokens, we are working on bridges that will allow moving tokens from Ethereum to Beam and then trading them confidentially on top of Beam and then moving them back. So this will allow things like confidential stablecoins, for example, which I think is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. If any of the stablecoins that are built on Ethereum could actually behave like cash,
yeah,
be game over.
That's the point. So this is when I say platform, it's basically these building blocks that make Beam not just a network for transfer of value, just sending beams from point to point, but actually build entire classes of applications for lending, for stablecoins, or many other things that are currently built on Ethereum or similar platforms with built-in confidentiality by default and the first layer within the node. So it's very robust and very, very fast.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much for offering that up again. So part of this for me is discovery. I don't really know clearly. I can't possibly know about your project as well as you do. And I don't really know in some cases which questions to ask. So thank you for offering that up. That's exciting. That's a really, really cool roadmap. At least what you mentioned so far. I can't wait. With this interview series, right, I've been talking a lot about privacy. I've been talking a lot about specifically the need for privacy in our digital financial lives. And of course, cryptocurrency promised that with the launch of Bitcoin. And Satoshi's white paper talks a lot about individual financial sovereignty and how Bitcoin was supposed to assist with that. And we've seen over time, of course, how it fell short. Satoshi wasn't perfect. He was no tech prophet. Did a lot of great foundational work, but there's clearly the work isn't done yet. So what you're working on with that specifically, that's just awesome. That's so great. And the use case you mentioned of stable coins potentially being able to transact privately by being routed through the Beam network, that's really exciting. So
yep.
Anything else that you want to offer like that? If you want to blow my mind with any other future features of Beam, by all means, you go ahead and drop those knowledge bombs on us. So we talked a little about funding, and now with the roadmap of Beam becoming more of a platform and then interacting with Ethereum. It's so cool. So cool. And then smart contracts you mentioned on Beam, having the Beam users be, as you mentioned, first-class citizens.
Yeah, it's not exactly smart contracts. So Beam doesn't have smart contracts as you have in Ethereum. Mm-hmm. But what we do have instead is this something with very unfortunate name, and it's difficult to pronounce. It's called scriptless scripts. Have you heard about that?
So I've heard of it, but conceptually, I don't have a solid grasp on it.
Okay, so it's a concept that was invented by Andrew Poelstra, who is a cryptographer and a mathematician, and he's also one of the scientists that actually analyzed Mimblewimble white paper and published a separate paper about it and validated it. So this is what his work actually allowed Green and Beam to build and implement this protocol, because he has reviewed and he has actually shown that this could work as a concept. So Andrew Poelstra also introduced the concept of scriptless script. It's basically building blocks, cryptographic Lego bricks that are built into the node, and they allow you to do many of the operations that is currently implemented using smart contracts on Ethereum. But the calculation itself is done off-chain. So in Ethereum, every node has to calculate the smart contract. In scriptless script and in Beam, it will work differently. So you can do the calculation off-chain using any technology you like, but then the result of that calculation will be validated on-chain. And the consensus layer will make sure that all the nodes agree on the result of that calculation. Okay. So in terms of applications, it will not allow you to create, just this unkillable, like smart contract unchangeable thing, but it will allow a lot of the currently existing DeFi applications, such as lending or such as, collateralized debt positions like you have in the basis of DAI cryptocurrency, and of course, escrow and STOs or any other, something that has centralized party issuing tokens, or bridges like we are building between Ethereum. So all these things will be actually possible without having smart contracts that have to calculate each and every program on chain. So it's an alternative approach. It has some really great advantages in terms of performance, which is one of the issues like with Ethereum. And it has some limitations as well, but this is like we believe will enable quite a lot of interesting financial applications to be built on top of Beam from the get-go.
Got it. That's so cool. I mean, and Alex, this, of course, for me, it brings up a ton of questions because I'm a layperson in the implementation of this sort of thing. So it makes me very, very curious, but it sounds really, really exciting. I'm really excited to hear that this is part of the Beam roadmap. It sounds like you mentioned, there may be a bit of compromise in that it sounds like the scripts have to functionally shake hands with more centralized applications and maybe a wider variety of programming languages as opposed to just Solidity and then having it be unkillable. But it sounds like it's a bit of a mixed bag, is what I'm hearing, where there's some good and then some fallibility, right? Some vulnerabilities may be introduced because you have so much that's done off chain.
Yeah, that's right. It's not as trustless, but it is trust minimizing, and you can do it in a federated way. So yeah, there are several approaches to mitigate these issues.
Awesome. Okay, again, I don't want to jump down a rabbit hole. It's very easy for me to do, again, because I'm a layperson. So I just want everybody to educate me on this podcast. So thank you for explaining a bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the any problems that the technical hurdles that the Beam project has dealt with that would make sense to a semi-technical audience. Inflation bugs, botnets, 51% attacks, double spend attacks, anything that has been a common threat to other cryptocurrency projects. Has anything like that come up so far? If so, how did you solve them?
Well, in terms of bugs and issues, we had two. One relatively minor from the very first days, and then I think 2.5 weeks from our launch, we had blockchain stoppage. So the blockchain just stopped for like 5 hours, and I think that was the most interesting and major issue. It was due to a very nuanced technical bug. When the node creates a block, it has to sort the transactions in some way. And there was one of the cases that we have missed, which made this order in a way that we couldn't create a block. So we had to solve this on the fly. I actually was, it was like this, I was on a flight to Barcelona at the time. So I arrived to the airport, and suddenly on Telegram, we'll use Telegram, I see that there is a problem and the blocks are not created. And I had to go, on the flight. And when I landed, the problem was already solved. So I cannot take credit, but the team really stepped up there. Yeah, and we managed to solve this very, very, very quickly. Other than that, so that was the most, I think, severe problem. We solved it quickly. We got a CoinDesk article as a result. That's one of the ways Beam blockchain stopped. But that was a year ago. Since then, I think it worked pretty smoothly. Just like any proof of work project, there is always the issue with miners. So far, I think we've been blessed with very dedicated miners of Beam. We had our halving at the beginning of this year, and Of course, the hash rate dropped a little because the emitted number of beams was halved from 100 at the beginning to 50. And so I think that went well. We did not experience a price jump on anything, but there was like a slight adjustment. We have also improved our mining algorithm during the year. I don't know if you heard Beam Hash 2, and this year it will be Beam Hash 3. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't. But it's interesting. Again, like you mentioned, the excitement that arose out of having your blockchain stoppage. Generally speaking, you only hear about it when it's bad news. And it sounds like this has been good news because you've avoided dominance, what is it? Net hash dominance by, say, FPGAs or ASICs or something as a result of staying ahead.
Yeah, so Beam has announced that we will be ASIC resistant for a year and a half. So for basically 2 forks. We have announced it from the start. The first fork was, I think, in August last year. And during that fork, so Beam Hash is a modified version of Equihash mining algorithm. And Beam Hash 2, which is created by one of our board members, Vilki Trey, or as he knows, Lolidip. He's on the website, and it offered like 30% improvement in hash rate for the same amount of video card power. So it was an optimized, and actually the hash rate increased by like 25-30% after that change. And this year, in the next fork, we're going to introduce Beam Hash 3. It was not announced exactly what the details will be yet, so we will wait with that. But there were some discussions. It will be a very interesting change because it will no longer be like ASIC, non-ASIC friendly. So, but it also will not be ASIC friendly. It will be like very balanced to allow both GPUs to continue to mine us, and also will open potential for ASIC creation in the future.
Okay, and so Beam 2 and Beam 3 are they based on Equihash? Are they variants of Equihash? Okay.
Yeah, Beam 2 is an improvement on Equihash, but Beam 3 it's a new kind of animal. It has some Equihash basics, but there is a major change there. I don't want to go into details because it's like too nuanced. Even for me, I have to refresh my memory exactly what is going on there. But sure. I think it will be published soon once we close all the details. But yeah, it will be an interesting change as well.
Okay, great. It sounds like then you've done more than the previous attempts at air quotes ASIC resistance on most Equihash based coins, which was to make a change to the N and K values of the previous Equihash algorithm. So that was the topic du jour, right? When the first Equihash ASIC came out, was talking to every coin that was dominated by that Equihash ASIC and saying, hey, what are your plans? Everybody said, well, we're going to move from this variant of Equihash we're going to move to Equihash 1927 or 1445 or 2109 or whatever the values were, right? It's like, okay, so essentially you've changed 2 variables. And that's enough for now, it seems.
Yeah. So it's due to the memory limitations and stuff like that. So yeah, but it's a very rich topic in it of itself.
Sure. Well, thank you for keeping me from asking too many questions there. But it sounds like then you are innovating somewhat as opposed to merely iterating in those areas of adjusting N and K values. That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll come back to that another time maybe, or perhaps we'll interview that side of the team. On that note, let's talk a little bit about proof of work, just briefly. What percentage of block reward goes to mining? And this is an apples to apples question I've asked many projects. So anybody who's not familiar with the project, what percentage goes to miners?
Yeah, so 80% of the block reward, which is currently 50 beams, so it's 40 beams, goes to the miner, and 10 beams post-halving go to the treasury.
Got it. And today, as it stands, on the roadmap, there's no plan to divert any percentage of block reward to any kind of stakers or masternode operators.
No.
Okay.
It's a proof of work, completely decentralized public network. No masternodes, no kill switches, nothing.
Awesome. Okay. Only curious because we've spoken to so many projects, some of whom have introduced the concept of service nodes, enhanced service nodes into their network, where they don't actually leverage them as master nodes for any kind of blockchain security. And then others that claim to be offering staking rewards, but they don't actually implement hybrid proof of work or proof of stake. So as you know, there's so many ways to implement rewards and so many ways to create a blockchain or a cryptocurrency project that people decide they see value in. So that's why I asked.
From the very beginning, we were very conscious about these issues. So we wanted to be as basic as possible, so as stable as possible. And at that time, and I think even today, proof of work with all its flaws is still the only really reliable, tested in time way of reaching consensus. There are a lot of experiments, proof of stake, delegated proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of whatever, a lot of experiments, and it's very good. I think it's great that this research is going on, but for now, proof of work is still like king for us. However, one of the things that we do want to investigate in the near future, and we have announced it last year as well, is the concept of DAG-based consensus, like Ghost DAG or Spectre. So this is on our research list. I don't know when or if we will ever implement it, but this is like one of the consensus that can potentially, I think, bring benefit in terms of mining decentralization, faster confirmation times and stuff like that. So that is something we want to look into, but no proof of stake, no master nodes, nothing of the kind.
Got it. Okay. That's it's great to hear that affirmation of your resolve to definitely stay away from proof of stake or master nodes. At least my content channel was built on proof of work mining and talking to proof of work mining enthusiasts and builders. So it's great to hear Beam will not be shifting anytime soon. Is there any other percentage of the block reward that has previously been given to anyone not mentioned, or in the future you plan to give to anyone that we haven't mentioned so far in the interview?
No. So all the treasury allocation was done before the first block was mined. So all these coins, they actually already exist, and they only, the maturity of them, when you reach a certain block height, they become available. So there is no way to reallocate or change this consensus in any way. And of course, our next fork will change nothing in this regard. So we will add a lot of features, but there will be no changes in our emission schedule. It's all on our website. There is a FAQ that details exactly our halving schedule and everything. And we do not intend to change that in the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing me to ask that question. It's been an apples to apples question. You'd be surprised. There are some projects, or maybe not, right? You've been in the space long enough. You've been evaluating all of the cryptocurrency landscape long enough to see some projects that have been around for some time have changed in their block reward, the way they're slicing that pie. So it can be a shock, and they're met with varying levels of success, but it's better to just be open about it, right? So as far as the so we already talked about proof of work pretty extensively. You mentioned CPU, GPU, FPGA, ASIC, kind of what the Beam plans are there. As far as just a couple of general questions, what is your project view as a reasonable decentralization of hash rate? And maybe if it's easier to characterize that question in terms of sort of, I don't know, customer profile or customer avatar, who is the person or who are the types of people that you would prefer be contributing hash rate, if is there preference?
Well, I'm not sure. So basically, so the funny thing is that when we launched, it was a very strange situation because we were calculating, there is a difficulty parameter, obviously, which is being adjusted as the time progresses, depending on hash power on the network. But when you launch a coin, you have to calculate the initial difficulty. You have to start with some value. And our idea was to estimate the number of GPUs that are going to mine us. So we asked our community, and we had some polls, and we arrived to some number. And we have set the initial difficulty based on that number. And according to that, it was supposed to take like maybe 10 or 20 minutes, or maybe more, for the first block to appear. And we said it's okay because it will give us time to adjust. And if something happens on the launch is a very stressful. The mainnet launch is an unbelievably stressful event. It's like everything is aligned to a specific date and time, and it was really emotional. But what happened is that we launched, and then like a few seconds after, we see a block, and then another one, and we said, what's going on? It's like most likely a bug. But turned out that the amount of GPUs that were waiting to mine Beam from the launch was like 10 times bigger than we anticipated. And it was like a shock to us because it was completely unannounced. Like we didn't know how many people are going to mine us. So we have been building the mining functionality into our wallet for like machines with like 1 or 2 GPUs. Because we wanted to have these guys like solo mining Beam before the pools, because we didn't even have the APIs at that time to integrate with the pools. So we built everything for the solo miners. But somehow, even without the APIs, some pools managed to take our wallet, the command line wallet, wrap it around with some scripts, piece some things together, and there were pools from the very beginning without even talking to us. And the solo miners just, it was not really practical to mine Beam on 1 or 2 GPUs. And so in the later versions of the wallet, we have removed that functionality because it was basically useless. So yeah, I think today there are a lot of people, small, like 10, 20, 30 GPUs farms, or maybe more, that are mining Beams, most of them using the pools. There is in our Explorer and our Community Explorer, there is this chart that shows how many resources and how many computational capacity there is in each pool. So we try to make it as balanced as possible in a way. I don't think there are like very, very large farms mining Beam today. I also think that last year, for sure, maybe even this year, mining Beam on GPUs was really profitable. So we were featured on What to Mine, and I think a lot of people have preferred us. When Ethereum went a little bit down, they switched to Beam, and vice versa.
I know certainly from my channel, my content channel, the advice has been for some time to look at small to mid cap long-term plays, and especially in the privacy space. So Beam fits the bill, right? Like, and I know I'm not the only person who's saying that, right? I know you have a lot of advocacy from people who create content surrounding proof of work and mining, because not just because of the price action, right? But because of how serious your team has been, but also the fact that you're playing in the privacy space. So it just makes good sense to anybody who's looking at mining at home. I don't want, whoever the local authority is, I don't want them trying to evaluate how many coins I have or when I acquired them, or doing chain analytics or whatever. So yeah, so you've had, whether you intended to or not, you've gotten a lot of grassroots advocacy during that time. So
yeah, we have a great community all around. Like people support us, and it's very, very important for the project. Actually, for the developers, most of them, it's the first time that they work on a project of this kind, and this immediate response, to something that you do from the community and the support. I think it's amazing and overwhelming at times. And I know that some of them like still can't believe that they built this thing and now it's alive, and people are trading and using it and talking about it. It's a very different experience from being just a developer for some company that builds some product for somebody. It's much more immediate and direct in a way. Amazing feeling, actually. Yeah.
Sure. Well, good, bad, and indifferent. I'm sure in some negative ways also you ride emotional volatility based on the results of how the market responds, right? Like, oh, people hate us, for the last 15 minutes, people hate us. Wait another 15 minutes. Oh, they love us again. So it's blockchain, I think. But that's awesome. So as far as proof of work mining, is there any kind of a threat that would cause the Beam project to fork earlier than anticipated? And if so, what would that require? What type of threat would that require for you to fork early?
Obviously, if there is like a severe bug or issue, you have to fix it and you have to fork. I don't think right now. I don't think there is like much chance of contentious fork. Like there are some forks of Beam that built from scratch that did some things differently. They are not very popular, but they're out there.
I should ask then, specifically with the proof of work algorithm, what type of threat? For example, I'll characterize one. If you were to discover that, for example, there was a highly performant FPGA and it was disruptive in the amount of hash rate that it took over on the network, would that be cause for concern?
So the thing with FPGAs is that even though they are more performant, but it's like one order of magnitude for the specific algorithm that we're using, and they're also very scarce. So we do know this space a little, and even like so it's would be very difficult to manufacture this amount of FPGAs to really cause this kind of issue. So we're not very concerned about it, but if something like that would happen, I don't know really, because we have a board and we have a foundation, so we would make the decisions. Many people there are very knowledgeable about mining. If you look at the board members, some of them are real experts in all mining related aspects. So yeah, I think, so Guy Korem was into mining since like 2013. Vilke Trey developed the Beam hash. Bo has like a lot of experience in trading and pricing things, and Ferdouz also has a lot of experience in exchanges and all stuff. So yeah, I think they will make the decision what to do in this case. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Just curious. I know there have been some projects that, for example, have in our interviews have said, yeah, there's FPGAs don't offer any performance boost with our algorithm. And I've said, that's not what the Bitstream developers like Whitefire, the most visible developer in the scene.
They do. It's like 10 times faster. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some projects who are dead men walking, and they just don't acknowledge that. So that's why I ask. If you view it as a threat, but it sounds like you've got enough by way of human resources, just the collective intelligence of your advisory board, that you'd be able to move in the appropriate direction.
That's for sure.
Cool. All right. So privacy. Let's talk about privacy really quickly. Mimblewimble as a protocol. Let me ask you some very rapid fire questions. Then we'll move on to the stuff that really matters. That is Alex Romanov's take on privacy. So thank you so much for asking or answering the questions the way that I've had them outlined so far. It's primarily to give the audience an apples-to-apples comparison to other protocols, such as the CryptoNote, right? So Monero-like coins or Zcash-like coins, or coins that are forked from them. There are apparently a lot of coins that have forked post-sapling update, who are the beneficiaries of a lot of the work on ZK Snarks. So to give the audience a really good idea of the differences, I like to ask different projects about some specifics of their privacy protocol. So I hope this will sound basic, but if you can bear with me, this will help our audience quite a bit. So as far as privacy on Beam, what percentage of transactions on the Beam network are private, and does it require user opt-in behavior?
100% of the transactions are private by default. It does not require any operation from the user, and even if you wanted to, you could not create a non-private transaction on Beam.
Awesome.
Just not possible.
Awesome. And as far as it being developed, apparently the Mimblewimble protocol was outlined, as you mentioned, in an anonymous white paper in 2016. But is it peer-reviewed at this point? And is that peer review accessible for the layperson?
Yes. So as I mentioned, Andrew Poelstra wrote an article detailing and explaining and expanding on the Mimblewimble construction. I think today it is considered well reviewed because there was quite a lot of research about it. You can find all these papers online. Andrew Poelstra once specifically as the most basic one, but there were some subsequent write-ups. I think the Tari library has it, a good article about it. It's considered stable.
Okay, and so Tari, so this is the Monero project, or they're related to Monero Research Labs, I believe.
Yeah, the Tari University, I think it's called. They just have a lot of great stuff there.
Awesome. Okay. And then, pardon my ignorance again, does any kind of Mimblewimble implementation require trusted setup?
No. This is one of the advantages that this construction and all the cryptography that is used in Mimblewimble does not require trusted setup.
Awesome. And this is a silly question, but the anonymity set size, how does it compare to something like, say, ZK Snarks, which apparently, by third-party accounts, has the highest anonymity set size?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's been debated and discussed a lot all over, the channels and the Twitters of the world. So I will try to answer this briefly, but provide the complete answer. So the technology behind ZK Snarks is really great in terms of the cryptography involved. The zero knowledge proofs give you an almost perfect or perfect anonymity set. And indeed, it is provides very strong confidentiality for the transactions. This is the case. In terms of theoretical cryptography, Mimblewimble does have an issue of linkability, which means that you cannot get this information from the blockchain. But if you are monitoring the network, large parts of the network, you can be able to link transactions together and reconstruct parts of the UTXO graph, which is, of course, not the best thing for confidentiality. So our way to address this issue, and we're talking theory right now, theoretically, is by adopting the Lilantus Mimblewimble. So 2 words about that. Lilantus was developed by Aram Jovanyan, who is a cryptographer for Zcoin, and it's the protocol they're implementing right now. The idea is that you have a shielded pool, and you put several UTXOs into this shielded pool, and then you extract a completely new and unlinked UTXO while still being able to prove that it's the same amount of value, basically. So what we're doing is we have modified a little this Lilantus protocol, and we have added it as an extension to Mimblewimble so that you can take your UTXOs and you can unlink them using this pool. And this solves this linkability issue. So once again, there is this discussion of what is the size of the anonymity set. And in zero knowledge, it's better. But for all practical purposes, and this is the second part, like so far we've been talking about theory. But if we're talking about practice, it's going to be is more than good enough in terms of practical confidentiality. So Zcash, for example, even though they theoretically have the better cryptography in this case, but the amount of shielded transactions in the network is much smaller, which basically makes it more vulnerable to attacks and the anonymization. So it's this balance of practicality and theory that we want to be in this sweet spot of using Mimblewimble without trusted setup, while still being able to have a great anonymity set that will cover all the practical bases.
Phenomenal. And it sounds like then there should not be an issue of scalability when using, like you mentioned, the example of this shielded UTXO pool of
So
Lentus, there shouldn't be a scalability problem that's introduced by implementing this.
It's a trade-off once again, because Lelantus does not lend itself to cut through, so you cannot really remove all these proofs. They have to stay in the blockchain forever. But what we're doing is we just limiting this in a way that will allow to use it practically. The blockchain will become a little bit larger, but it's the design choice, it's a design trade-off that we're making in order to accommodate for better confidentiality.
Got it. But it shouldn't be prohibitively bloated,
no.
right?
No.
Yeah, block size. Okay.
No, it's not.
Got it. Okay. And again, as a layperson, this is why I ask so many questions, is that I can become informed through conversation. It's for me a better learning modality than engaging directly only with white papers and only with maths. That's definitely more difficult, I think, for the layperson or the semi-technical like I am, and I think represents a bit of our audience. So from what I understand, the ZK snarks even were not very scalable until the sapling update. This is what I'm hearing from other projects who have chosen to go with all shielded transactions on, as a design choice for their coins using ZK snarks, is that they had, if it weren't for the sapling update, they could not have made that design choice. So sounds like there are so many trade-offs like you're saying, but it sounds like then with Beam, are there projections as of right now for what that will do to throughput and scalability? Do you know just yet, or is there still some experimentation that needs to be done?
Yeah, I think it will be more obvious once we release the testnet version, which I hope will be relatively soon, maybe a month or so. It also depends on the how many people will use it and how often and things like that. So of course we have to provide some guidelines, inside the wallet, make these usability features to encourage people to use this correctly, because a default makes all the difference sometimes. If it's so we are considering that. But also one of the things that we're constantly are aware of is that this space is moving forward at an incredible pace. So there is a lot of research going on, and new solutions and new concepts and new research and ideas are created constantly. So we're looking forward to what the researchers will bring next. And there is a lot of action in this space. Yeah, definitely.
Sure. It's exciting to watch from the outside, for sure. Like you mentioned, just over a year ago, I don't think the research that has gone into Lentus, I think it had begun, but I don't think it was motivated yet in the way that it became motivated after the Zero Coin exploit was discovered. So
yeah, definitely. It was actually, I think it was conceived sometime in December 18, but it was like published, I think in March 19, something like that. And it's definitely the entire field of cryptography. The new questions that cryptocurrencies and blockchain projects pose, bulletproofs, right? So things like that. Fly client, a lot of developments that came to be just because of the demand of this space. That we need better cryptography, we need it faster, we need it smaller, we need it. Yeah, it's a very impressive thing to see.
Yeah, I think so. Alex, to your point, I think for the audience, this is looking just a little bit into the space again as a layperson from the outside. It's proof that we're so early in the development of cryptocurrencies. People who think, oh, Bitcoin's been around for 10 years. Why isn't there perfect adoption everywhere? Like, just be patient. It's a process.
Yeah, for me, and maybe so it's before we talk about my take on privacy, but one of the most interesting things for me about this space is this amazing combination of both technology and sociology and economics and politics. And I don't think there is another area, for a developer or for a software person with so many different impacts on different, aspects of the society. When you look at this space, and for me, as you know, I came as an outsider, so I was not part of some early cults. And I saw that some of these groups behave like a small religion, and there is this like belief system based on something around it. And there are the technical people and the math people and the traders and the economists. I think it's an amazing thing that we're all part of. It affects so many things in our society. It's very impressive and very interesting to watch.
Absolutely. That and the international community that's come from it. I think if you join some of the Discords and you hop into the voice channels, you'll have somebody who's tuning in from Israel. You'll have somebody who's tuning in from Kiev. You'll have somebody who's tuning in from Berlin. You'll have somebody who's tuning in from Laos, right? And all in the same voice chat, because it's so interesting, like you're saying, and it crosses socio-political and socioeconomic and cultural and racial boundaries in a way that very little else can. There's so many things to talk about within the space. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about chain analysis. You mentioned that there was, you made reference rather to the theoretical exploit that supposedly exists with Mimblewimble. Not sure that it's actually been that Mimblewimble networks have been de-anonymized successfully, but there's the claim, right? The theoretical claim that they have been. So thank you for addressing that. As far as the anonymity of Mimblewimble on mobile wallets, Beam has 2 mobile wallets today that you mentioned, but not good third-party wallet support yet.
Right.
Is there anything on the roadmap with third-party developers that we should be looking forward to by way of third-party wallet integration?
Yes. So the reason there is so few third-party wallets that support Beam is because of this issue with Mimblewimble, that it requires interactivity. So it does not really fall into the existing API frameworks that these wallets are used to integrate all the other cryptocurrencies. It requires a lot of work from them. So what we've done in order to make this process much easier is we have separated the wallet into several parts. So there is this part that handles all your secret keys, right? The key generators. And this is the key part of the wallet, which has to be, stored securely. And this is what you have on your hardware wallet or your mobile wallet. And then there is this part that handles the interactivity component. And what we've done, we've moved it to the web service, which is centralized, but it's trustless. So it doesn't hold any of your secrets. And you can run it on your machine or your machine in the cloud or wherever you like. So it doesn't have to be a specific service. But then what it allows you to do is take this component that only deals with the signatures and the signing of the transactions and integrate it easily into a third-party wallet.
Okay.
And this is the development that we call it the web wallet. It has these 2 components, the web wallet itself and the web wallet service. And there is this key keeper, which is the internal part of this web wallet, which we will create an API for, and we will offer it for third-party developers to be able to integrate Beam into their wallets as well. And it's something in the works right now. We're moving forward with that, and I don't have specific announcements just yet, but I really hope that in very, very near future, we will have this.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, knowing about that, I interviewed Miles Manley and Dan Keller just not too long ago. So knowing that this is something that you're working on, I would have pressed them for more details and maybe some collaboration if I had known about that. I would have said, "Hey, are you supporting Beam soon?" In their wallet. But that's good to know that hopefully there'll be an announcement from parties similar to them in the future. But
sure,
great. So third-party wallet support coming soon. ... Privacy opinions. Let's move away from future privacy plans. And thank you so much for giving us a bit of a 360-degree view. Is there anything else about the project right now that you'd like to talk about? I mean, because you dropped a couple of really great roadmap plans that I didn't even know that I should be asking about, didn't even know that they should be on my radar. Is there anything else on the Beam project coming up that you'd like to talk about?
I think we have covered most of it. Just to organize, in 2 words. So in 2020, we're planning to become a full-featured confidential DeFi platform, which will include the ability to create confidential assets, which will be first-class citizens in the system. We will provide, of course, all the APIs necessary to build these applications. We will add Lilantus, which will, first of all, it will improve confidentiality and remove the linkability issue, but also we're using it to hide the asset type So when you see the transaction, you don't even know which type of asset is traded, not just the amount. And of course, there are no addresses. So this is the Lelantus Mimblewimble extension. We're building the web wallet, also for the confidential DeFi applications, but also for integration with third-party wallets. And we're building bridges that will allow to move tokens from Ethereum and back, and hopefully create confidential stablecoins from existing stablecoins on Ethereum. This is the plan. This is the roadmap that we published. It's on the website. It's in our Medium, and I also personally recorded some videos about it on our YouTube channel. It was a bit of a challenge. I'm not as an experienced video blogger as you are.
Well,
but
I mean, save some awesomeness for the rest of us, Alex. That's so cool, though. I'll make sure that we have a link to that in the show notes so that people can see that.
Would be great.
Because this has been a lot more exploratory, right? Discovery on my part, because frankly, I have to claim ignorance. There's so many. What I think at last count, there are 6,000 active projects today, 6,000 active coins. None of them are doing what Beam is doing. So I don't mean to compare you to somebody that's like ranked 4,500 some odd in the market cap. Just to say that I wind up doing a lot of discovery because I just can't know the roadmap of every single project. But I appreciate you being patient with me. That's awesome.
So overall, we hope to continue to move at our great, fast pace like last year, and deliver a lot of great stuff. I think there is a lot of interesting things that are coming up in Beam, and definitely worth monitoring. Reading about, asking questions, joining communities. I think it will be an interesting year for us.
Very, very cool. Yeah, based on what you talked about so far, I'm going to be paying more attention for sure. So let's talk about Alex Romanov's ideas on privacy. Now that we've talked about Beam, I think this is just as important to anybody who's listening in as the roadmap of Beam. And I'll defend my position here. The ideology of the founders of a team and the leadership of a team, generally speaking, shapes the execution of a roadmap. If there's not real resolve to do something based on a worldview or based on some personally held beliefs, I don't know. I think we've seen in several instances that it's very difficult for those teams to get things done, even if they have raised funds, even if they do have properly set up corporate structure or governance structure or finances. It can be really difficult to rely on those teams to pursue a cohesive vision, it seems. So let's talk about Alex Romanov specifically. I know you can't speak for everybody on the team, so just you.
Yeah.
But what are to shape this a little bit? If you had to boil it down to 3 of your favorite private currencies, it can be an AFK currency, a la cash, or something that you can trade. It can just be an implicit agreement between two people that is kept secret in their minds. But it could be a cryptocurrency as well. What would be your top 3?
Top 3 cryptocurrencies?
Top 3 private currencies. So
top 3 private currencies
of any type.
So Beam, of course, the first. I think so. Monero probably the second, and I think Cash will be the third. Yeah, something like that. But one of the things that was very interesting with our team that everybody had a little bit, not a little bit, different opinion about things because we came from different backgrounds. We were not like so. Some of us were very experienced in blockchain and the crypto space, veterans with, hardcore Bitcoin people, maximalists and such. Some of us were like me, like clueless, learning everything and like what is going on here. And for me, so one of the more difficult things to actually accept at the beginning is that it's not practical enough. So you see this great technology and you say, okay, where can I actually use it in the real world? And then you see, not so much. You can, do this, buy some ice cream with lightning and, brag about it on Twitter. Yeah, you can do that. Is that really the point? And then you see the existing banking system and how it works, and you start to understand all these problems of the world and different solutions to them. So I think where we found the common ground, and that's what allowed us to focus. And that's why I said like Beam, Monero, and Cache is the topic of practicality. So you obviously want this. You don't want to, like, in my opinion, or at least for me, I don't want really to subscribe to some ideology just for the ideology's sake. What I do want, I want to have a better and more, flexible world of finance. I think in the long run, the cryptocurrencies will provide for better globalization, and we see this today, and for much lower fees and more flexible and decentralized structures. I think no matter how much time it will take, the existing industry will not be able to ignore this. And there will be some movement towards each other, and eventually we will just have a better financial system. That's for sure. And this is like the long-term point that I think we're going to.
Got it. And it sounds like then a bit of the personal reason for you then was because of your relative newcomer status to the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, that it sounds like for you, demystifying the use of and the practical application, it seems like it's still a pretty closely held value then. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I think the ICO boom of 2017, it was both good and bad in a way, because from the good part, it brought a lot of interest and a lot of money into this industry. But on the other hand, it also stained it with many scammy and problematic projects. So it was like kind of mixed blessing in a way. And I'm very glad that we're past this phase, and it's much easier today to track, high quality projects with real innovation, real research, and real intent to do something new and meaningful. So that's the space.
Awesome. Well, let me circle back to a couple of sort of structured questions on related to ideology. And the first one would be that on your short list, you mentioned Beam, of course, as top of the list for you. You're making a better cryptocurrency that has the features that you actually want to use. So shouldn't be a shock. I think anybody who's working on a privacy-oriented project that doesn't list their project in that top three, run away, run away from that project. So that's high on your list. You mentioned also Monero, and you mentioned Cache. Have you used all three in the real world?
Yeah, I definitely use Cache.
Sure.
I did not use Monero in the real world. But the reason I mentioned Monero and not many other cryptocurrency projects is because I think it's the closest to this trade-off, to this balance I'm talking about, in terms of confidentiality, adoption, community, and making the decisions, about the technology and how to build it together. I think it's a very good example of how things should be done. Yeah, and I think Beam will be able to improve on some points. Scalability being the most important one, ease of use the other one, because it's very difficult to use most other cryptocurrencies. But I think it's a good project, and we definitely take. I personally relate to it. I take example from what they're doing.
Okay, phenomenal. Well, since it made your short list, hopefully the next time we meet up, whether it's at a conference or we perhaps do another follow-up interview sometime, hopefully at that point you'll be able to say, yeah, I tried it, and then form an opinion based on personal use. I love hearing the opinions of experts who've tried all these other technologies and been able to compare them, right, against their preferred technologies. So I would love to get your feedback at some point. I always wear this hat, and podcast listeners won't be able to see, but I'm wearing a hat that bears the Monero logo. But I wear it because similarly, I feel like it is just because it's private by default, and because it has already that network effect, and because they're actively researching, right, with Monero Research Labs and now with Tari Labs or Tari University, they're putting so much effort into the research that they. Hopefully any limitations Monero has today will be worked on and ironed out in the future. But they'd be the first to say they don't have it all figured out. They're not perfect. So So that's awesome. I'd love to get your feedback though, doing a direct comparison at some point in the future, and hopefully I will have more of an opportunity to have used Beam in a practical way. But as far as privacy wallets, do you have any favorite privacy wallets or cryptocurrency related privacy tools?
Mm, no, no, I can say I do.
Okay, fair enough. And then as far as just privacy tech that you think more average users, and you mentioned that a lot of the design choices that have gone into the Beam wallets have been to address the average user, not the highly technical user. And you know, and then of course the average is pulled down pretty significantly in some areas of the world. But as far as the average user, speaking to that same customer avatar, what sorts of privacy technologies do you think more people should be aware of and use day to day?
Well, I think there should be like I don't know, an education effort all across the privacy space, because well, obviously, being a developer of private cryptocurrency, I am like you know, very very deep in this space and these issues, and I'm aware of all these very scary things that can happen, and all these, you know, nuanced points and cracks and hacks and all this stuff. But for an average person, even the understanding that you know, this small lock icon in a browser means something, you know, it's not obvious, and all the privacy and the security, privacy of your data, who can see it, and how can he accept it and get it. It's something that is very very far from understanding for an average person, and especially like I'm a father to a 13-year-old daughter, and she's using a lot of technologies. So she has an iPad and she has an iPhone, and she's using some services, and you know, making sure that she understands what she's dealing with, and to behave properly. It's something constantly on my mind, and I'm very aware of the lack, you know, of education in the space. I think this is something that the crypto community in general should contribute to, in a way, because it's not just about whether you use Bitcoin or a private cryptocurrency. It's a more, you know, broad topic that I think should be brought to public awareness constantly. And I think it impacts a lot of our lives, you know, every day in a lot of ways. From the very basic, you know, internet does not forget anything, and the right to be forgotten movement, and you know, all the other organizations that the Electronic Frontier Foundation and all these privacy advocates. I think they should be you know, brought to attention, because it's basic and it's important.
Okay, so then it sounds like then, in your opinion, the privacy technology that more people should be aware of is just in general the fact that they can take steps to be more private, and having there be an education effort on all of our parts as cryptocurrency enthusiasts to participate in that effort to educate the next person, right? Educate our neighbor or our brother or our daughter, that like, hey,
yeah, definitely. Okay. And we need to explain that it does not come from paranoia, and it doesn't come from the need to hide anything, which is the common misconception. Like, what do you have to hide? You don't need privacy. But rather from the, you know, more deeper understanding that privacy is a basic human right, but also that your privacy is important, not just because you have to hide anything, but because you know, it's your life and you have to control it. And
sure. And then to your point, also being a basic human right, most cultures would agree that there are certain things that can be viewed as shameful in the wrong context when taken out of context. So, for example, certainly not shameful to be naked when you're in the shower cleaning yourself, but definitely shameful to have naked photos of yourself published on the internet without your consent. So,
exactly,
if you've allowed through negligence for your phone or your laptop to be hacked, then yeah. That makes perfect sense. Like, most people don't view that context matters, right? So, but I can I can kind of relate. I have teenagers myself. So, and yeah, it is one of mine, my 12-year-old, does not have a phone, does not have a tablet. Any of the connected devices that child uses, they're logged into a general family account. And so if we ever find anything, and I'm, for my part, I'm using a bit of that cloud technology to my advantage to be able to log search history and to be able to take a look at the photo roll, right, remotely, and see, okay, what have you been doing with our family's devices here, and then use that as for parental accountability later on. But even at that, it makes me worried, right? That like, oh no, I'm surrendering too much control to these cloud providers, I think. Because what if something does go wrong and then they flag it and they think, oh, well, you did something negligent or wrong. And
the technology has become so interlinked and so complicated. And, as a society, we can hardly, keep up with all the... I remember this version of iOS, I think, when they linked devices using your Apple ID. And suddenly 2 phones with the same Apple ID, started ringing at the same time with some version update. It was very strange, and it's something you don't expect, initially.
Sure.
Things like that happen.
And I think I spoke to somebody also who said that the Google checkout system, where you ask Google, you ask Google to create an archive of your data, a zip file or some sort of 7-zip or gunzip file of your data, and then download it. Apparently, for a short window of time, when users were making that request to have their data put into an archive for download, the email and the download link with the correct token to access it was being sent to the wrong user.
Oh my God.
Google services. So all of the archives are being downloaded by completely random third parties.
Unbelievable. Yeah, the thing is that, for example, you have a file that you encrypt with a password, and it's a short password, and then you put it in the cloud, and then you say, you know what? This data is important to me. I will make this password longer to make it more safe, right? But the file is already cached somewhere. And you're not even aware of these things. You don't know when you delete something, whether it's deleted or not. So these things, I think, are part of this education process that I'm talking about. When you select a password, select a long password, make it longer. It's important stuff to know.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's phenomenal advice. So it sounds like that just mindset, having a mindset of can I be more secure, and then not associating it with paranoia. But that it's
exactly. It's just like you lock your door on the way out automatically. You don't even think about it. It's the same kind of automatic response that we need to cultivate.
Okay, that is the words of wisdom from Alex Romanov. Thank you. I think this is really good, and I think more people should, like you're saying, adopt just a posture and attitude of greater awareness. Definitely. So I'm going to ask one closed-ended question here, and then we'll expound on it in just a moment. I think I know the answer. I think I know what your answer will be. But does privacy matter?
Of course it does.
Let's characterize a complete lack of privacy in the world then. If people don't believe you when you say that privacy matters, what would a complete lack of privacy look like in the world? Or if we just implement privacy wrong, what would that look like?
Yeah, well, it would be a nice utopia. I would have seen a movie about that if it came out, kind of like, when that movie about when there were no lies in the world. But the reality of the thing is that the privacy is unevenly distributed, and the power to control your privacy is basically somewhere, not necessarily in your hands, and you do not necessarily agree to the current situation. So you're not even aware of how it works, your privacy. And this is the scary part. It's not about knowing something that you agree to, but it's about not knowing how it really works in the real world. So privacy matters because it's an important part of our lives, which we do want to have a better understanding of as a society, and we want to have better control, on the total. It does not necessarily mean going to Wild West of I'm my own bank, which is part of the ethos of cryptocurrency, but maybe somewhere in between there is this truth of how this should work, and it's definitely not how it's working now.
Got it. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing there is that if there is a lack of privacy in the world, or a lack of personal sovereignty within data privacy, then it just becomes a different system of control, or a different means of leverage from those who would try to control others in an unfair way. I think that's what I'm hearing you say in part there.
Yeah. So there is an imbalance of how privacy works today, and it's not explicit enough.
Okay. So on the flip side, let's characterize what the correct, maybe without getting too prescriptive or too low level, but if privacy, data privacy, and privacy otherwise were implemented correctly as a society, right? Humankind does it correctly. We achieve the correct state and level and balance of privacy. What do you think that would look like?
I think the word here is trust. So it's very, simple. When you trust something to do what you think it would do, and you're not surprised in any way, that's how it would look like.
Okay, it's very succinctly put. Thank you so much for going through that with me, and thank you so much for letting the audience kind of take a glimpse at your mind on the topic of privacy. As far as where to find the Beam project, you mentioned before that beam.mw, the main project site, is a really good starting point, and all other contact info is available there, correct?
Right.
Awesome. Is there a best way to contact the team? Are you more responsive on one platform over another?
I think Telegram and Discord are the most active platforms. Telegram is preferred for me personally, so if you want to find me there, no problem. And of course, we have the international community and the local communities for different languages as well. So yeah, Telegram or Discord is the best. And to learn about Beam, I think our wiki, if you're technical enough, or our YouTube channel, and Medium articles if you are less technical but want to learn more.
Okay, awesome. And can I ask, this is just something I'm going to do for public accountability with my audience, and then for the accountability of your community. Did I ask for or receive any kind of bounty in exchange for arranging or conducting this interview?
No, you did not.
Awesome. Okay, that matters to me. That the integrity of being able to ask any question that I feel like, that matters to me. I love having that flexibility, and hopefully the audience appreciates too that this was not bought and paid for. On the flip side, this is a very serious question. Can I borrow 50,000 Ethereum in exchange for my new token? I'm just kidding. So you may not be aware that Richard Hart, that was the initial raise for the Hex token, was 50,000 ETH. I don't know how he did it, but like you mentioned, this is a crazy space, and yeah. Anyway, with that, I can tell the answer is no. So it's a bummer, Alex. I think this is taking a toll on our new and evolving friendship. I'll remember this when you ask me for 50,000 ETH.
Sure.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate you going over all the aspects of the Beam project. Any parting words for the audience about Beam or about privacy in general?
First of all, I would like to thank you. I think it was the great interview, probably one of the best I had ever. Very thoughtful, very, covering all the aspects. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I think that anyone who is interested in the space of cryptocurrencies in general, privacy currencies in specific, and technology around it, is welcome to monitor our project. We do a lot of great stuff, a lot of innovation, both technical and non-technical. We are going to have an interesting year ahead of us, a lot of features, a lot of concepts, and a lot of plans. Yeah, so I would like to thank our community for supporting us so far. They've been really, really great and important for us. And of course, I hope they will continue to support us, and we will not disappoint them. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, I think based on what you laid out, the pace of innovation, the pace of releases last year, the aggressiveness of the roadmap, and the reality of having to reach out to other projects that are implementing features that you need to integrate, I think it bodes well. It bodes well for the kind of support you're going to receive. I think people are paying attention to how hard you're working and the impact. So I don't doubt you'll get that support and more in the future.
Sure.
Alex, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.